Hey everybody. So it looks like I'm live right now. I'm streaming for you guys. So if you're watching this, if you're watching this on YouTube later, thank you for watching. I'm gonna answer some questions from my chat. I'm gonna answer some questions from some comments I got and just talk a little bit about Vue. So if you're in the chat room right now, say hi. Just wanna say hi to me. That'd be awesome. So right now, was just really announced. If you're interested in Vue, they just announced Vue Comp. They announced all the speakers. So if you don't know, this is a conference that Vue does every year. It looks pretty awesome. I'm going to go into that. But first, I actually have a sponsor for this stream, if you can't believe it or not. And that is a company called Simply Learn. So Simply Learn is a really cool site. They offer courses on data science. Like you can do real life data science with Python, data science, math refresher. So essentially, when you buy this course, you get hours and hours of really cool data science courses. There's actually live office hours, so you can get even more information. Let me show you. So if I go to data science with Python here, you see here I've kind of gone through it, but they have quizzes at the end of each section. So they have these video times. They have, I won't click on it, but they have live classes so you can get one-on-one teaching. So yeah, I just thought this is a really cool platform, really cool if you're getting into data science, and it's worth checking out. So I put a link in the description below. It's actually, let me see here. Yeah, it's the link's in the description below. If you use the code ERIC30 at checkout, you get additional 30% off. So yeah, if you want to check that out, Simply Learn. I'll mention them a few more times because they were nice to sponsor the stream today, as this will go out live on YouTube later. Cool. All right. So let's go back to Vue Comp. We'll come back. These are some questions I had on my channel. And hey, what's up, dedicated managers and Med Amin? So thanks for saying hi. If you come into the chat channel, just say hi. Love to hear from you guys. So I was gonna mention Vue Comp. So Vue Comp is March 3rd through 4th is their main conference, but on March 2nd is their workshop. I will be there live in person to say hi. So if you're in the area, you happen to be in Austin during that time next year, hit me up on Twitter at EricCH, or just leave a comment and maybe I can say hi to you. If you're at the conference, even better. So this is really cool. So here's the speakers lineup they have. So they have their normal workshop and training, but I really like the speakers. What's up, Vanille? They have Sarah Drasner, an animated guide to Vue 3 reactivity and internals. I think a big thing you're going to see with Vue Conf this year is Vue 3, because Vue 3 is just the hot new thing that's out right now. And if you don't know anything about Vue 3 and the new composition API, you are in for a treat, because I have a bunch of videos on it, and I'm probably doing some more on it too. But it's kind of a big switch in the Vue community between Vue 2 and Vue 3, because the composition API is a lot more, what's the word? It's a little different. It kind of reminds me of React hooks, if you guys have been in the React world. But it's a way to kind of put together your Vue apps a little differently. So it takes a little bit to get used to. But that might be a great one to see. Sarah is an amazing speaker, and I've gone to chat with her a few times, and she's really great. Then Greg Pollux, he also has another Vue 3, which is kind of interesting. He has one Vue 3 composition API explained visually, and she has an animated guide to Vue 3 reactivity internals. Seems similar, but I bet you they're completely different talks. Damien also always does great ones. Validations in the composition age. Yeah, definitely you can see here a lot of stuff about the composition API, or at least those 3 talks. I really want to know what this one is. Unconventional Vue. Vue is a backend framework. That's something you don't see too often. Vue is a front-end framework, so I wonder how he's using Vue as a backend framework. So those are kind of some of the ones I'm really excited about. Natalia, she always puts amazing talks on. I'm looking forward to that one. Really, you can't go wrong with any of these. Vue as a compiler, that's another kind of like, what? Vue as a compiler? This might be a great explanation talk, kind of taking maybe a more complicated Vue lifecycles and then demystifying it. Yeah, so that's really cool. Okay, let me see here. Can you refer to me to a website for learning Vue and Vue X? Well, if you are trying to learn Vue, usually the best way to go is to go to the Vue.js official guide, which is, here's the V2 version of it. I wonder if they have the V3 guides out yet. I think they're working on it. Not yet. So yeah, the official documentation Vue is probably one of the best places to learn Vue if you've never used it before. It's really, really good. It's probably the best in class between React and Angular. Definitely better than Angular. React is good, but I think Vue's documentation is great. They have not just the guide, but there's even more places you can learn Vue. If you look at the ecosystem, you can go into each one of these about, usually there's a guide on all the major libraries. And then they have this style guide, examples. They have a cookbook for you. And then if you want more paid content, you can go to Vue Mastery or Vue School. Or I have my own course called Create Awesome Vue.js Apps with Next.js, which is a plug. But I have my own course, and it's in the link in the description below where you can learn. I also have a book called Vue.js in Action. But if you just want to get started real quickly, something for free, go to the official documentation. That's the way to learn it. And it does have a section on Vue X. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember where it is. There might be a whole style guide a whole guide on Vue X. Let's see here, Vue X guide. Yeah, so vuex.vuejs.org, they have their whole guide on it to get started. I kind of like learning visually. That's why I do YouTube videos, because I think that's a good way to learn. All right. Yeah, get my book. Yep, I am live right now. If you didn't know, some people are asking, is he live? Yep, I'm absolutely live. So if you have any questions, this is a Q&A. Just throw it up in the chat and I will answer it. I will definitely answer it. So where was I? Yeah, I was just talking about Vue Comp. Some really cool, they just announced this 2 days ago, all the different speakers. So I'm really excited. I'll be there. Something funny too about conferences is I'm actually trying to get into conference speaking, and I actually applied for Vue Comp. I didn't get in, but it was really competitive. They had hundreds and hundreds of people submitting to get into the conference, but I'm almost glad I didn't, because there's so many amazing speakers here, and it's going to be awesome just watching this, and I'm glad that I don't have to deal with the stress of trying to come up with a conference talk. But that's that. So that's Vue Comp, if you guys are interested. So John Smith. So I care about writing code that is easy to reverse engineer. If Vue 3 makes code better to reverse engineer, then I'm interested. I doubt it. So I'm not sure what you meant by this, but definitely React, Vue, and Angular. If you mean you want to just write code without a framework, you can do that. But if you're doing it with the framework, you can look at the source code for all these. They are open source. You can jump on the GitHubs for each one of them and look at the source. If you could definitely reverse engineer that. And then some instances, you don't need a framework at all. That's one thing I tell people, is that you don't have to have a framework if you're just trying to create something simple. If you're creating a brochure site, for example, you might be fine without a framework. In fact, this is what I would do. I would get something like Nuxt or some static site generators. And what that does is you can write your code in something like Vue or React or Angular, and then it compiles it to these static HTML files. And you have this super, super fast site that's made from it. And then you can look at how it did things, how it compiled it to HTML and CSS, and how that all works together. I'm also thinking, yeah, or I would just do it without a framework. Yeah, just normal HTML, CSS, JavaScript. All right, let me check the chat again. Yes, I searched JavaScript and live, and I saw you. You know JavaScript? Dennis, I do know JavaScript. I would say I'm pretty good at it. I think I'm pretty good at it. But I focus mostly on Vue.js, React, Angular. Angular and Vue are my favorite. I also was a big Ember.js fan back in the day. And that's what I did. So I'm gonna look through some comments here. Would you like to know about lifecycle hooks? They're a little confusing. Yeah, so let me see. There was a really good on the official guides, which I think there was a lifecycle diagram. So this is kind of what you need to know when you start using lifecycle hooks. And by the way, lifecycle hooks aren't going away with Vue 3. They are going to still be there. You're just going to be putting them inside the setup, function, but you will still have mounted before create. So this is kind of how it goes. So when you create a new Vue lifecycle, you have this before create. This is where you put some of your code if you want it before, like even the component is created. And then there's the created hook. And then you're going to see, has the EL option happen, no or yes? And then you have before mount and mounted and before destroy and destroy. So usually, like if I was going to do some DOM manipulation after the whole page loaded, I would put it inside the mounted lifecycle hook. But if I wanted to do some more setup code, I can put it in before create or created. But if you put something in like before created, you're going to have problems if you're trying to do some DOM manipulation or you're trying to set some certain values. So I usually stick with the created and mounted hooks when I do it. And so this is kind of how the Vue app creates the lifecycle hooks. And if you need to destroy like an event listener or something, you would probably put it in the destroyed hook at the end of it. So let me see what else. Oh, so we got lots of questions and comments here. So can you explain about Vue X? I'm confused when I learn Vue X because I don't know how Vue X works exactly. Well, so the concept of Vue X, so we have multiple components in our app, and we want a central store to locate information. That way, if we're in any single component, we can share and grab information. And there's a few ways in Vue you could do this. There's something called an event bus, which is usually not the way that we recommend to do it, but people still do it sometimes. And this event bus is something that you can share between multiple components to be able to share information inside your app. But what Vue X does, and I always like to make comparisons to other frameworks because I know a lot of people are coming from React. So this might be your Redux pattern, or Flux pattern, I should say, is the implementation of Vue X. So you have mutations, you commit stuff to the store, and then you can retrieve the stuff from the store. So you have state. Basically, you want to have one source of truth throughout the app is your state, and you can use Vue X to get the state wherever you are inside the app. If you're using Angular, you might have heard services. So services do something similar, or NGRX, which is kind of the state management system inside Angular. And of course, in React, we have Redux. So you essentially create this file where you map everything. Let's see here if I can find a good example. Like you can create these modules which have the state, mutations, actions, and getters inside of it, and then you talk to that inside your app to get the information. So usually getters, you get the information from it. You can use actions if you're going to be setting different state. Mutations is actually where you change state, I should say. And then you have the state is where the state is stored. So it's just a way to kind of share information throughout your app. You don't have to use it all the time. There's a big debate in the Vue and Redux community. Do you really need Vue X? Do you really need Redux? And of course, you don't need it all the time. It's just when your app gets to a certain size, it becomes really helpful. I think it's so simple. Compare Vue X compared to Redux or NGRX. I think it's so simple. I think you should put it in almost every app, but it does add a little level of complexity. All right, so I'm going to go through a few more questions. Let's see here. Why is React more popular than Vue? What's better on React? Well, yeah, so if you look at the React versus Vue, actually, I'm going to do an upcoming video on this, on React versus Vue. And I really think that they both are great frameworks. React is technically a library, but they're both great solutions to the problems that we have with web development. And I don't know, I think React just got really popular, had backing from Facebook. It just kind of spread really quickly. I think Vue and React came out, I think maybe React was out a little bit earlier. and it just spread in popularity, and people just really like the pattern. Especially, you end up writing in JSX most of the time, so you have this JavaScript and HTML, and you have to write a lot of JavaScript, and people just like it. I think Vue is a lot simpler, it has an easier learning curve when you're started. To get a team up and running in Vue is much easier than a team up and running in React. But they're both great. Love Vue, but there are so many options. Vue CLI, Quasar, Nux, Laravel, etc. What do you focus first and then? So if you're starting off the Vue, I would start off with Vue CLI. That's kind of the simplest way to start off with, because you can use this command line tool to get up and running and get a fully featured app with all your transpiling, everything you need to do, get it up and running really quickly. If you want, you can actually even just use they call it the progressive framework Vue, because you can just add Vue to any project by just throwing in the Vue CDN tag, and you could start using Vue right away. But I would say if you're just starting off with, just start off with Vue CLI, and go through the official Vue guide. Just go through the official Vue guide and start reading it. Understand what the Vue instance is. Look at the lifecycle diagrams. Look at the template syntax. I mean, using these curly braces or this mustache style syntax everywhere. Look at the different directives. That's one nice thing. You're writing HTML, but you just add these little directives like v-for and v-ifs. It's just really simple to get started and up and running. But that's where I start. And then once you learn the basics, then you can look at Quasar and Nuxt and Vuesax and all the validation libraries and all the things in the Vue ecosystem and world that are getting really popular right now. And then probably also look at the new Vue 3 composition API, which you don't have to use, but it's a nice tool to have in your tool belt. Can you reverse engineer a Vue app? I mean, get source code from transpile minified. Well, Vue does, it does get minified and transpiled when you compile a Vue app, when you build it, I should say. And you can go into the source code and take a look at things. I believe it still has the library, the Vue libraries in there, so you could look at it. And I guess you could reverse engineer it, but since it's minified and obfuscated, it's going to be really hard to figure out exactly what's happening inside of it. I mean, you're better off just looking at the GitHub, looking at the open source library, and just kind of dig underneath it and try to figure out what it's doing. But I think you're going to have problems if you're trying to reverse engineer it. It's kind of a funny question. Have you ever deployed Vue to an AWS S3 bucket? Specifically, it doesn't seem like there's a way to handle history mode. Yes, I have done that. I have done deployments to S3. If I remember correctly, it's no problem. You can switch it between the hashtag, the history mode, or the other mode, which it has the hashtag, and I don't remember having any issues. It seemed to work fine. I think in the S3 bucket configuration, you specify that you're using it as a single page app, and it works great. In fact, I used it twice. I used it once a long time ago, and I just pushed it up to the S3 bucket, and then I used it with the Amplify library that Amazon offers, and that makes things much easier. So I would recommend, if you don't know how to do your S3 bucket settings correctly, I would just use the Amplify library and just initialize it. I don't know if you guys have seen the Amplify library. I did a video on it. Amplify Amazon. But it works for all major frameworks. AWS Amplify. And you just npm install --save amplify. And it does a whole bunch of things. It has a whole console. See, I think there's a better website here. Here it is. So they have a get starting guide. You install the CLI. It works for iOS, Android, Web, React Native. So if you want to do in JavaScript, they do have a Vue, AWS Amplify Vue. And so you can really easily do authentication. You can connect to all the Amazon services. You can even set up Lambdas. And this will actually do deployment too. So they have a whole deploy section in here. Let's see here. Predictions, XR. I think it's in here somewhere. I am certain it's in here. I just don't know where it is. But if I remember correctly, yeah, it's just really simple to deploy your app to anywhere you need it. And so this is what I would use. Let's see here. How do you prevent users from accessing a route directly with Nuxt.js? Let's say you build something like a wizard, step 1 and 2, and you want to redirect before the page is rendered. So this is a little tricky. Someone asked me a similar question because in normal, like I did my video before, when you're setting up Vue, you can set up route guards. So let's see if we can bring that up in the documentation. Route guards. Route guards Vue. I think they have a documentation. Yeah. So in the router, remember a lot of the libraries for Vue have their own guides. So you can add these navigation guards. You can do this before each here. So you have this to, from, and next. So you can. This is how you do it normally in Vue. So every time a route's hit, you can kind of check to see where it's going to, where it's coming from, and then I believe the next is a resolve hook. So it's essentially like you do next, and then it goes on to, it completes whatever it's going to do. But you can actually stop it if you wanted to. So you can check to see if someone's authenticated, and then if not, you can move them over to the login route. But with Nuxt auth guards, which if I just Google it for a second, it's a little bit more complicated, and they have a sandbox here, because if you if you refresh the page, sometimes the server-side rendered app part of it works. So essentially in Nuxt, you have like a node server running in the background. So that way, every time the app loads, it takes the HTML and sends that payload, HTML, CSS, it sends that payload first to the client. So you have really fast time to load, and so it loads really quickly. And then in the background, it loads all the JavaScript. So in this case, inside Nuxt, you have ways of running code on the server and running code on the client. So I saw this problem in Firebase that if you didn't have the code loaded in the server correctly when you do a refresh, then it doesn't work right. You'll have this weird issue where you'll refresh the page and then like the wrong route will load up, and then once the JavaScript and everything loads, it'll route to the right place. So you have this refresh issue, and it the route guards won't quite work right, or it'll kind of work weirdly. So I'm just going to do a video on this because there is ways that if you look at the, let's see, the routing guide, they've updated their documentation. It looks nice. You have this async data, and essentially in async data, you can run things that happen when the app loads, and you can run it on the server side. So you have access to the context, which has the request and response object. And I believe what you can do is you can save in the request object your authentication, and then you can retrieve it when you when you refresh the page on the server side first to see if they're authenticated, and then route them to the correct place. That way you don't have this weird issue where you refresh the page and then it looks like you're in a route and then it reroutes you. But that's for a different video. It's pretty complicated, but there's ways of doing it, and that's what I wanted to do in one of my next videos. So created is before the DOM renders, mounted is after the DOM renders. Yeah, so created is still in the lifecycle hook of between when it's still building and creating the lifecycle for the Vue app. Can you explain Vue.Next Tick? That's interesting. I just went over this in a video. You guys are asking me questions I just went over in a video. That's good, though, because these are kind of complicated things. So if you look at Vue test utils, this is actually one thing that just recently, not recently, but within the last 6 months, changed was they have this Next Tick. And what they found is that Vue batches pending DOM updates and applies them asynchronously to prevent unnecessary re-renders caused by multiple data mutations. So you can read about it in the Vue docs. So it talks about async, and so it's essentially like there's this big loop that the Vue engine runs to do DOM updates and manipulations, and it's quite complicated. But VM Next Tick is an instant message, which is especially handy inside components because it doesn't global view and callbacks, this contact, blah, blah, blah. So essentially, they use Vue Tick to wait until the Vue has performed the DOM updates after we set a reactivity property. In the counterexample, setting the count. So we actually, in some instances, when you're creating test cases in Vue, you have to use this Vue.Next Tick to basically go to the next, wait until the next like render and all the DOM updates are updated inside your Vue app. And this probably goes back to the way the lifecycle hooks and how your Vue app renders when changes occur. So the only time I've seen this useful is in testing, because it says right in the official documentation that you probably should use this when you write your tests. But I have heard of people having to use Nexttick in weird situations with like third-party libraries where they needed to use Nexttick inside their Vue apps to like wait until some DOM rendering is done. I don't think I haven't heard about people using it that often, but those are the 2 times I've heard about it. But it looks like in here you can read all about it. So returns a promise, you can choose the same above. And you can kind of wait until certain things are updated. So if you're having weird issues with reactivity inside your Vue app and you're waiting for reactivity to occur and you're trying to kick off something else happens, you might want to look at this Vue.Nexttick. I wish I had a better answer for you. It's kind of interesting. Please make more Ember videos. I'd love to do more Ember videos. I just have so much time, and there's those videos sometimes do really well and sometimes people are not interested in them. I'm really looking forward to the new version of Ember. So if you don't know, there's a new version called Ember Octane. It was supposed to be out already, but it got delayed. It was supposed to be on 3.14. I think the preview's out, but they don't have... See, Ember 3.4 Octane will be primary recommended way to use Ember. But last thing I heard, it was delayed. So it's coming in 3.14, but 3.14 is not out yet. And this kind of is a big deal for the Ember community. It has some really cool updates. I did a whole video on Ember Octane and some of the things to look out for. I should probably, when this comes out, I should probably do another follow-up video, because the Ember community just keeps going. It's definitely niche. It's a smaller community, but they have some really awesome updates, and I like it. How is Vue in Vim? Well, Vim is, of course, like a text editor that has some really fun key bindings. I've used Vim my whole life. I'm a really big fan of Vim. I've gotten okay at it. I think I could be even better. I've seen some Vim experts and some Emacs experts, speaking of Vim versus Emacs, and they are just amazing. But I use Visual Studio Code, and I use the Vim plugin inside of it, so I can do all my hotkeys to move stuff around, and it works great. Works excellent. I know a couple of other YouTubers that are big Vim fans too, and yeah, it's awesome. And in Vue, it's fine. I mean, it's just a way to move around the text. Okay. Oh, greetings from Indonesia. Rohan? Akira. Will this be available to watch later? Yes. So anybody that is watching now, this will be on the YouTube channel. So if you can't stay or have to go, yeah, jump to just check out the YouTube channel. Yeah, dedicated managers. Yeah, looking to amplify. It's great. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have. Maybe I can see what time it is on the stream here. Wow, it's been 30 minutes. Time flies. Time flies. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Maybe I'll just go over a few questions I had on my channel comments and see if I can answer any of them while I'm here. Thanks, Eric, for listening and creating videos. Oh, and let me just say one more time. If you've gotten this far, thank you for watching. If you look inside the links in the description below, this video is actually sponsored by SimplyLearn, which is a really cool website. So if I go to SimplyLearn, they're having this course, this Data Science with Python. It's a training course. It's over 68 hours of blended learning. They have live classes where you get an instructor. They go over like tons of machine learning stuff. If you guys listen this far, please click on that link in the description below for them. If you use the code ERIC30 at checkout, you get an additional 30% off. I really appreciate these guys. They were able to sponsor this video today. And yeah, check it out. Click on that link in the description below. And if you know someone that's interested in data science, share this with them. It's a really great deal, and it's on sale basically, and it helps support the channel. So yeah, check out SimplyLearn. In fact, I'm gonna throw it in the chat channel if I can find it. Here you go. I think that's it. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, use that and then check it out and use the code Eric30 at checkout. All right, let me go back to my comments. Great video, thanks. You're welcome. Will you do a video on implementing PayPal into the Vue app? So this is something that I'm really interested in doing. I think there might even be some libraries for Vue that integrate really well with Stripe and maybe PayPal. PayPal's a little bit more complicated. I was looking at their API, but this is a video I want to do in the future. Definitely PayPal or Vue. How do you create, just in Vue, just create a really quick checkout page where you can put your order information and then connect to the Stripe API. I think that it's really easy. I want to say it's really easy. So it would be a really cool video to do in the future. Can anyone, let's see here. How to make my Vue app support old browsers. So I want to say that the Vue has a pretty good backwards compatibility. I want to say it should be have backwards compatibility with all versions of Chrome. I've never heard of it. Like there's a certain version of Chrome it doesn't support. I know it probably doesn't support old IE11. Let's see here. So it uses browser lists. So which you can specify. It helps you specify different targets for different browsers. I don't think I've ever heard of issues with browser compatibility because it uses browser list. Maybe, so here's specify browser ranges. So what browser list is it's like an auto prefixer. So it'll help add prefixes for older browsers. So that way, if your CSS uses something that browser doesn't support, it'll auto prefix it. It also does some other things, and you kind of put inside here like what versions you want to support, like last one version or last 1%. So developers still can use the query's last two versions. I'm guessing the compatibility is pretty good. I don't think you're ever gonna have problems with older versions of Chrome. Oh, I really like your videos on Dado CMS and Nux. Thank you, Sylvan. Are you also going to create a demo with the Storybook CMS since they provide a Nux bridge, mixin, and visual editor for Vue? You know, I did a Storybook video for Vue a while back. The Storybook has really gained popularity in the React community. I have not heard it, and I'm going to go to a Vue Comp this year. I'm going to ask around if anybody in the Vue community is using Storybook. It seems like it's really caught on in the React community. I don't think it's so much. So if you look at Storybook, that's like a UI components library. So essentially you connect it up to your app, and then I don't know, anyone can go in and run Storybook, and they can look at all the different components that you have in your app. So if you have your spinner component, or you have the buttons or pages, you can actually put whole pages in here and just take a look at it, and you can kind of edit it. And I know in some I think you can also like generate tests and a bunch of stuff on it, but I did not know. You're saying Storybook has a CMS with Nuxt. I don't API bias. Yeah, I don't. Oh, Storyblock. I thought for a second it was Storybook. Yeah, Storyblock is different. I've never done anything in Storyblock. I've never even heard of it. The only headless CMS with a visual editor. Interesting. Yeah, that might be an interesting video. I know a lot of people have watched. I did a video on my favorite headless CMSs, and it's funny. I got so much hate. Well, I got mostly positive, but there's always a few haters, and I got a few people that hated it because I didn't go into enough detail. They wanted me to like run every single one of these headless CMSs, do tests against it, and then come up with like a 2-hour-long video. And since I just did like a presentation on it, people didn't like it that much. But I went back and I did like 3 or 4 videos on Dado CMS, Sanity.io, and I think 1 or 2 more where I went in and actually did edit. I actually hooked it up to a Vue app and then checked it out and saw how it worked. I just didn't do in that one video. But this might be another one. I know people still love headless CMSs. I think it's a big trend. And yeah, definitely in the future, I think you're going to see more videos of me doing that. Cool. Yeah, so I'll look up Storybook. I've never used this. Hey Eric, questions. Do you know when someone learning Vanilla.js should be competent enough to jump into using Vue? I've been dependent on jQuery for years and love it by Vanilla.js skills. So you really don't need to know. Unlike, I really think that Vue has such an easy on-ramp for new developers. There's really no reason you need to spend a lot of time ramping up on Vue.js or on JavaScript before you jump in Vue.js. I mean, I think you should learn the fundamentals of JavaScript before going on to any sort of library or framework, but you're not going to be stopped by that much. I mean, you're just creating the script tag, you're creating these little objects, methods. Shouldn't be too hard. I mean, obviously, if you know nothing about JavaScript, I would start there first. You're trying to rebuild your foundations, Vanilla.js. Just curious how much you think I should get in comfortable with before jumping into Vue. I think if you're already using jQuery and you're good with that, I think you can jump in today. There's no reason not to. Okay. I think that's all I'm going to do today. That's about it. I think I had one more question on props. When dealing with props, do you recommend to assign them to other variables or just mutate them directly? I just mutate them directly. Just once they get passed in to as a prop from one component to the other, from the parent to the child, you can just start editing them there. I don't think there's an error in doing that. I think it's fine. I can't remember. A long time ago, I remember if you edited props, it gave you an error, but I think you're fine. I think you should be fine. All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys sticking around for the last half hour here. This will be up on YouTube. So if you guys want to go back over this at any time, certainly do that. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. And make sure you also check out our sponsor, Simply Learn. Thanks.